Hi there, it's Dr. Brenda with the Gutsy Women Club, and today I'm very excited to bring you another Gutsy Woman profile. We're here with Shawn Powell, who describes herself as a modern nomad. Welcome, Shawn, and can you give us a little bit of background? I mean, tell us what you're about.
Thank you for having me. I am a modern nomad. My day job is that of a management consultant. I primarily provide business assessments and valuations and operational efficiency tips and tricks to my clients here in the United States, as well as several countries around the world. In 2016, I, you know, became a RVer with my travel trailer, having, upgraded from having been a tent camper almost all of my life. And so it's great. I look at the trailer as my mobile cabin, and I work from here when I'm not at a client office or not traveling elsewhere. And that's about it. That's me in a nutshell.
Well, tell us about like your childhood, and I mean, I understand that you've moved an awful lot, and you've kind of have this inspirational parents, and so give us a little bit about how you the nomad that's in you.
I, you know, I think I came by it honestly. my my parents were pretty adventurous, and they decided when I was a child that they were going to move from Louisiana to Wisconsin, and it was really kind of, I'm going to say it was on a whim, because my father, as the story goes, just said, "Okay, I'm moving to Wisconsin," and my mom said, "Okay, let's go." And if you visit our website, it'll talk to you about how our journey started. So colloquially in our family, our journey started with $26, four ball tires, two fried chickens, and a baby. and I
Wow.
and I was that baby when they decided to move to Wisconsin, and from there we started to camp after we moved to Wisconsin, because my mom liked to fish a lot. And probably in the mid 70s, we went from tent camping to our first camper, which was the VW camper van, and I was hooked from that time. And mobility was always something that we did. I was thinking about it recently, how many times I moved, and I had to stop counting after about 18 or 19. I just stopped counting and stopped trying to remember all my various addresses. So, so
Well, that
that
yeah, as a Wisconsin, a Louisiana winter versus a Wisconsin winter, that must have been a heck of a shock. So, um,
it was. I remember our first trip to go ice fishing. Um, and we were so new to the concept of frozen, large bodies in water. I remember my mom, we were in Madison, Wisconsin, and there were all these little, if you're from up north, then you will be able to relate to this. There are all these little flags out over the lake. So my mom says, "Are those directional flags or warning flags?" No, we're from Louisiana. The water doesn't freeze in that way. So we strike out onto the ice. And I remember thinking, this is bad. And we get so far out. And so one of the other fish guys out there fishing, his shanty is like, "No, no, don't go there. The flags are bad." Well, obviously we made it. We actually did get the hole dug. We caught walleye pike, and yeah, that was my introduction to ice fishing. So
well, I have to admit I've never ice fished. Grew up there, never ice fished, and never ice skated. So, um, yeah.
no, you were missing out. I mean, it really, that first trip out on the ice. and seeing these little shanties, these little tiny houses, which are now very elaborate. So if you go out now, there are these elaborate palaces out on the ice. But at the time, they were little more than sheds that these guys had pulled out there. And I
Yeah.
thought, man, if you can live on frozen water, man, you can live anywhere. And that was really like, I thought that was probably the nature of
Yeah. So you introduced me to a new concept. I'd never heard of the word Eleutheromania.
yes.
So tell me what that
Elithromania,
is.
elithromania is the intense need to be free. And as long as I can remember, probably the single most important thing to me has always been my freedom. And freedom of mobility, freedom in thought, freedom in my actions. And that really is what with Elithromania means. It just is this person that just has this insatiable need to be free. And that's me, my three great loves: freedom, passport, and learning new things. So
So you mentioned that you've been to five of the seven continents, missing Antarctica and Australia. So tell
yes.
me what that what prompted that, and were you doing that as part of work, or did you fill that in for fun? Tell me about how you fit all this into your life.
It's a little bit of both work and fun. It was just, I'm very much a goal oriented person. I like to learn a lot of new things. And if it's new and interesting and exciting, you can almost count me in. I'm really a thrill seeker. So I'm uncertain that I'll ever jump out of a plane, but I will definitely contemplate jumping out of a plane. And when I thought about it, and I thought I had read a statistic many, many years ago about the number of Americans that do not have passports. And I don't really remember what the statistic was, but it was shocking for a country this size
Right.
for people to not leave. Now, don't misunderstand me. One of the things that is most fantastic about living in this country and being an American is that there's almost no culture that is not represented here. There's almost no terrain that is not represented in this country. This country is truly fortunate for its seasons, its landscapes, its bodies of water, its interesting cities, its eclectic people. You name it, it is probably in the United States. But having said that, when you dig deeper into that statistic, and this is my occupational habit, digging deeper into that statistic, it was even more shocking how many people never leave their state,
Correct.
how many people never leave their city. And when you think about a person who has a desire to be free, that's just a little box or a little cage that someone puts you in. And that's this self imposed entrapment that we all do. And we think that we must do these things. There are so many things that you really can choose not to do them, but we do them out of habit. We do them because they're familiar. And I like the unfamiliar. Now, I do like to mitigate risk. I don't like surprises unless they come in small teal blue boxes with Tiffany on the top. Other than that, I can kind of roll with it. As long as I know what the variables are, I can come up with contingencies to at least address those variables and then move forward.
So one of the things that we're trying to do at the Gutsy Women Club is build the confidence, and so alone, and before I moved in, I renovated the RV, and I have a little wood burning kit. So I burned in a quill, and I wrote "Be brave," and that's sort of because I think deep inside, I mean, I'm guessing now you're a planner and an organizer, so you mitigate risk, but there's always a fear I think that many people have that is just very difficult to overcome. I mean, what is the biggest obstacle for women in terms of, going to Europe on their own or whatever it is that they're dreaming about? What is it?
In my opinion, it's their mindset. We somehow allow external forces to dictate what we should do. There, in one of the talks that we give on benchmarking, and the thing that I point out to people is when you think about books or literature, there are these literary devices that move along a story. Well, in the one, there are many, but there are four that are almost always present in any story. And it's man against man, it's man against nature, man against society, man against himself. In almost every story, those four things, or one or more of those things, is always present. And when you think about man against society, that's big brother, that's government. Those are things that you have no direct influence over. You can't change that. Man against nature. Hurricane comes through. Really can't do anything about that. You can prepare for that. Then there's man against man. That's you comparing yourself or your business to someone else. Well, you're comparing yourself to them is good, just as a measuring stick of how I think that I'm doing based on an average in the bell curve. But out of all literary states, the thing that is most significant is the thing we have the most control over, and that is man against himself. So when you think about your constructs and how you think, and whether or not I can do this or I can't do that, I can't tell you, and I'm sure you've seen them too, the number of times in one of our Facebook groups that someone will say, how do I drive a Class A? Same way I drive my Jeep. I'm going to get in here. I'm going to make sure I don't run over any pedestrians. I'm going to take my time. Or they'll say, I can never back up my trailer. Well, before I bought my trailer, I didn't really back up many things either. So I took my time, spent the extra money on the reversing camera so I could see behind myself. And I kind of went with God and slowly. So if I did run something over, it'd just be a little run over, not a big run over. And that was it. Really, what we have to do is we have to stop making excuses for why we don't do something. And excuses are comfortable. They're comfortable because we gravitate toward that which is familiar. I recently was talking with a young woman and I was saying to her, she has a son. And I said, she says, oh, with this lockdown, oh, he's, and I said, have you considered taking him camping? And her immediate response was, oh, I can't deal with bugs. And I said, they have bugs in the city. You get to see a grasshopper, if you're lucky, you see fireflies. Not often you get to see them. And I said, that's your biggest concern? And she says, well, yeah, there are bugs there. And I said, then don't go behind a restaurant. I have many restaurant clients. Don't go there, or you're going to see things you don't want to see. And, she said, well, I never thought about it that way. It's just a thought. And I said, really, we have to change the narrative on what it means to camp. And for people like us, this is not camp anymore because this is where we live. You said you mentioned you remodeled your fabulous new travel trailer. I did the same thing. I went and I bought my travel trailer. It was new off the lot, and probably with things I was already thinking about what I was going to change. So, slowly over the last year, we've been transforming the travel trailer. So this weekend's exciting improvement will be to install a new Wi-Fi switch for my awning. So that if it's raining, and this is so ridiculous, but it's great. If it's raining when I return home, I want to go on my phone and push a button that lets my awning out, even if it's just for a few minutes, so that I do not have to get soaked as I'm standing there fumbling around with my trailer key. So
See,
I'm
now,
doing
now you've done it.
it.
Now I have to research and spend more money. Thanks a lot. So,
No problem.
yeah. Have you um, always been so unconventional, or did you at some point feel like, I should probably do the marriage thing, and I should probably do the kids thing, and I should probably, there are these expectations. So tell me about that, if that's happened.
Uh, and I have been married. I have been married. I am divorced. We were together 18 years. We had two beautiful daughters. They're fantastic. One is 26. The other will be 22 this year. And I know this is going to be a shock to you, but my oldest daughter actually has done her master's work and is working on her PhD. She normally is in London, but because of everything that's going on in the world, she's in the United States now. And my other daughter is normally in Hong Kong, but because of everything that's happening, she is in the United States as well. So the older wants to be a psychologist, and she's doing her master. She did her master's work at the University of East London and is hoping to continue her PhD work at the University of East London. My younger daughter wants to be an interior designer and started her life off at SCAD, which is, if you don't know the acronym, is the Savannah College of Art and Design. And she
Okay.
started off in high school at the Hong Kong campus in high school, and they invited her to attend university in Hong Kong after she graduated from high school. So she spent, I guess, 2.5 years or so in Hong Kong and had to come home for a preservation class and was not able to go back because they have since closed the Hong Kong campus because for obvious reasons,
Yeah.
because of the global pandemic. So
Yeah.
they're
So, what I'm reading through that is that you have never really been conventional, and you have raised children who you have said, go out and do what you want and expand your mind and your world and your life. So,
yeah.
do you think so? Part of being a gutsy woman to me is like, I hear people, and this is where I'm going to piggyback on what you said. We all have excuses. So people say, well, I'm not a risk taker. I'm really afraid. It's not within me. I know I have a dream of, maybe I'm 50 and I want to go back to college and I think that's too old. It's like, well, that's nonsense. You can do that, right? But people will say, well, it's just not within me. I can't be gutsy like you. And what do you say to that? Is this something that is just part of you, part of individuals, or is it something that people can learn how to be gutsy?
I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I think that I'm reading a book here recently. I'm starting reading this book because I wanted to understand more of what it means to be nomadic, particularly a nomad. And research, there's a researcher whose name, forgive me, I can't remember his name, which is terrible because he did a lot of work and no one remembers his name. But he posits that there are really three types of people, not however many 19 dimensions of personality, but really they're the warriors, they're settlers, and they're nomads. And the settlers always sounds terrible. It sounds like a terrible title, but it's really not. Settlers are people who are stable and they keep the rest of us from flying too close to the sun. That's what the settlers do. But he suggests that initially there was only two types. There were warriors, those were the hunter-gatherer people, and then there were nomads. They were more free-spirited. So the warriors make sure that the animals don't eat us all. The nomads go out and find new stuff to make sure that we don't starve. Well, once that expanded, because it's like okay, this area looks pretty safe. That's where the settlers were born. So all of that means is that within all of us, those three types and characteristics exist. It just depends on us individually which ones we choose to amplify, which ones we choose to suppress. Because as someone's mother, everybody knows the story about the mama bear. You know, you're very calm and mild mannered unless someone is threatening my children. Well, mothers are usually stable and settled. Then there are people like me that are kind of all of the above. And I would say to any woman in particular that wants to do this, start small. You can start small with just, you don't have to buy a fancy travel trailer. You don't have to buy a Class A. You can start with a tent that you can stand up in. This is what I would say. Do not get a pub tent. So if you really want to know if you want to explore the world, get something that mirrors things that are familiar in your life. After I became an adult, I wanted to still tent camp. I'm only 5'3". If I cannot stand up in this tent, it's a no. That's going to be a no. I am 55 years old. So if it requires me laying on the ground in a sleeping bag, that's also a no. So you decide those things that are no's for you, that are deal breakers. So when I took my girls and my two nieces on this epic road trip in 2000, we went from Florida to Victoria, British Columbia. We tent camped the entire way. Our tent was 10 by 15 with 2 rooms. We had air mattresses. We had outdoor furniture. We had heaters because I don't like to be cold. We had, you name it, we had all the gear. And we had a fantastic trip. We saw so many wonderful things. We did Pikes Peak and God's Garden, Grand Tetons. We did Yellowstone. We did the Space Needle, the ferry over in Canada. We did a festival. We camped on some of the hardest rock I have ever experienced in my life and bent our tent stakes, but we did it in this forest in Canada. And people would ask all the time, you did that with those kids? And it's like, I didn't have the sense to think that I couldn't do it. I could try. I could navigate a map. I could do all those things. So why would I think that I couldn't? And to this day, that is a trip that all the girls still talk about because it was me and the 4 girls, and they were 7, 8, 9, and 12, and
Wow.
we were out in the world. So start small, and also consider that being a nomad, or even if you're just occasionally camping, doesn't mean you have to spend the entire time in the woods. And that's another thing that people think, especially women. Why would I want to sit in the woods? I look at my mobile cabin here just as a base camp. I purposely got a travel trailer so that I could leave my home in one place and then go wherever else I needed to go, whether it's for work or if I'm on a trip for pleasure or a combination of both, which is usually what it is, that I could just go freely and do whatever else it is I wanted to do without worrying about, towing my car or driving this Class A or Class B, which I do not begrudge anyone. If someone gave me $1 million Class A, I would power through it and drive it. So I'm not knocking the Class A's or the fifth wheels at all. I just wanted to drop my home and then be able to live my life. So I have attended operas, which always makes me laugh. Knowing that I got dressed to go to the theater in a travel trailer just tickles me. Yeah, and I drive up to valet parking and I'm laughing the whole time, thinking about this tiny, tiny bathroom that I had to get dressed
Yeah.
to be. And that really, if people will allow themselves to expand how they think about it, especially when you think about campgrounds really right in the city or they're right on the edge of the city. You don't have to be in the woods. This is just where we're going to and have our meals. We can explore and do other things. And if people will allow themselves to think outside of the box, that it's not just being in the woods, it would change people's perceptions on getting outside.
Well, there are also so many different styles. So my style is very different than yours. I've got to have my AC, and this is what works for me. And then a lot of people find out over time it doesn't. But I want to backtrack a little bit because you were talking about warriors and nomads and settlers, and I'd love for you to address like what changes over time as we age. So I've done in my 20s, I've done things that could be considered foolish. And then, I had a professional career and did everything I was supposed to do for 20 years. And then now I'm coming back to, I think, like who I was meant to be in the place. But it's scarier in my 50s than it was in my 20s. So what do you think? I mean, talk about that, because I do feel like as you get older, the excuses may pile up more, although the kids are often independent, so you have more independence. But the mindset, the ability to say, I'm okay, and I'm going to, and a lot of us are out there doing it on our own. So there
Mm-hmm.
isn't just person, there isn't another person, here, it's me and the cat. So that scares a lot of women. So talk about, aging and what happens. I mean, anything that you've noticed?
Um, I think when I turned 55 this year. So what I noticed is suddenly I had a lot more aches and pains. I don't know what happens with that. That there's this magic switch that all of a sudden it's like, ow, that kind of hurt. Um, what I would say, because I intend to continue this until I cannot any longer. So as you age, I think we do things that make our lives easier. You mentioned air conditioning. Well, I have my air conditioning because I cannot be hot and I cannot be extremely cold. So it's like I can't do the extremes. Now, one thing that I noticed, which actually is like, really, Shawn, my travel trailer is a Gulfstream vintage cruiser. It is, I guess, technically 23 feet, but it's 19 feet of living space. Um, I added a dishwasher. And I had asked in a couple of the groups, so what do you think about this dishwasher thing? And I got all these women, I just want a simple life. And I'm like, I'm simply gonna put them in the dishwasher. I have a dishwasher at my regular house. I can have a dishwasher here. And I think again, it speaks to mindset. So when you think about the things that you want or you need as we get older, think about how you would mitigate whatever it is. I'm of the mind, I think about the absolute worst thing that could happen and I work from there. So once I've decided to make a plan to mitigate whatever that worst thing is, I just put it in a little box because I've already engaged in the thought and the emotion of this worst thing. So if this worst thing comes up, I know how to handle it already. And that's probably an occupational habit. So I'm thinking with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So as I get a little older, what do you think? Could this happen with the dishwasher, for instance? How, and I didn't, first of all, what women need to understand is you don't owe anybody an explanation about a choice that you make. That's it. You don't owe anyone an explanation about, now, if somebody else has paid for it, then you may owe them an explanation. If you're going to be the person that pays for it, and as my mom used to say, I pay the cost, so I'm the boss. Um, I thought about that dishwasher. Most days, like today, I will work, but I'll work from here. But most days, I'm away. I finally get home. It takes me 2 hours to get back to my base camp. If I actually cook something, I don't want to wash the dishes. I mean it. I don't. I'm done. I'm toast. Getting up at 5 or 5:30, finally getting back here at 9 or 10 o'clock. The last thing on my mind is washing dishes. So I thought about it. I got my little dish. I do whatever I'm gonna do. I put them in the dishwasher and I push that button. And that's just one thing that I don't have to worry about. So as we get older, it's our job to figure out those one or two or 20 things that will make our lives easier. You don't want to have to deal with, the awning thing. I come home, I'm in Florida, it's the great deluge every day. And if someone could just, you know, if I didn't have to get wet to get into the camp, that would be good. And I thought about it. I said, supposed to have thought about this. I'm not the only person. So I did some research, and sure enough, there is a switch that is Wi-Fi enabled that is actually designed to raise and lower your shades and curtains in your house. Well, your awning is a big shade outside with a similar motor, so it works. So I have my little switch here that I'm gonna give that a shot. And really, that particular thing and this thought came from a trip to Cuba that I took in 2018. So I'm in this guest house, and I come outside, and this young woman stands up, and she has on a housekeeper's uniform. So as I open my door, she's standing there. I'm thinking, oh my God, have I done something? And she said words that changed my life, and those two words were coffee, miss. And I looked around and I said, are you talking to me? She said, yes, ma'am. Would you like coffee? I'm like, yes. So she takes me to this table, makes me this fabulous cup of Cuban coffee, and she went back and she sat down in her seat. And then she said, would you like an omelet? You know, they don't do that in hotels. But at this guest house, which was a private residence that had these, you know, it's kind of like it's like an Airbnb, sort of. But that was part of her job. And I thought, that is fantastic. I need one of these people in my life. And I can't get one of these people in my life. So I supplement that with the dishwasher, the automatic thing that lets the awning out. That is my coffee. Oh, is it raining, miss? Do you need an umbrella? I'm going to push this button and the awning is going to go out so I can get out of my car and come inside without getting wet. And we think about things in those terms and change how we apply all of the other experiences that we've had to the situation at hand. You'll be shocked at the solutions you come up with in your life. So as we get older, just think about all these other things and experiences that we've had and apply it to that problem or that issue. Someone asked a couple weeks ago about getting medication on the road. Well, they were like, well, everybody's stressing. How do I get my pills? Well, you can go to a national pharmacist. You can have them shipped to a UPS store because our addresses change all the time. You can, there's a lot of ways to do it. And the person's like, wow, I didn't know that. And it was just surprising. And they were like, you can do that? I'm like, no, you can do that. And really, that's where how older women can mitigate this. But if you're going to sit and bask in misery, if you're going to sit and bask in what you don't have, you're never going to move beyond where you are now. So start where you are now. Being a nomad doesn't mean that you have to put 50,000 miles on your car every. It doesn't. You can pick the region that you think you want to explore and just explore that region. Liberate yourself and your thinking and your consciousness. And then you can do whatever you want. You can move from region to region. I mean, once I've been 100% full time, 100% remote next year, I plan on, breaking the country up into regions. So I'm going
Hmm.
to be in this region for this amount of time, and then I'll go to the next region this amount of time, and that will be it. Right now I probably do 50,000 miles a year, give or take, on my car just for my regular normal work. That doesn't include all of the airline miles, which I don't have any now. So we don't have any airline miles now. Um, and I know that will continue because there's so much to see in this country, in North America. I secretly, or not so secretly, just really want to take my travel trailer around the entire world. I'm going to have it shipped by cargo order so that when I get there, I have my car and I have my travel trailer. And
Yeah,
that's
that would be sweet. To me, it's about setting priorities. So, your or your Wi-Fi awning are your priorities, and then
yes.
also not guilty about it. As I think a lot of women are like put themselves way down on the totem pole. So it's like, oh, I don't deserve that, but you found out in Cuba you do deserve that. Everybody should deserve that. So I
Yes.
work. I mean, I've been able to do a large part of what I've been able to do because I've been so good at saving money. And now we're at a point with coronavirus and unemployment rates through the roof. People going back into debt. People not sure how to pay rent. And I think one of the things that I would really like to emphasize is that you know, I'm in my RV, you're in your travel trailer, and we're working. And
Mhm.
if there's probably no better time ever in the history to be able to work remotely, that I have seen so many people do so many innovative things. I remember reading a story about a couple of RVers, and she got it into this hobby of making these really fancy dog collars. I mean, she was also like a
Mhm.
travel nurse
Right.
and made these bejeweled dog collars, sold them on Etsy, and ended up making so much money and having so much business that she had to quit the travel nurse part and just focus on this. But there's so many ways that you can be innovative, provided as you've got the decent Wi-Fi connection.
Mhm.
So, I mean, how, and then as I think you had mentioned at one point earlier about, like the whole 4-hour work week, can you build flexibility? Can you make money? Can you build the flexibility so that this is your base camp and you go out to the opera when you want? So, what do you think about? I can't afford it. I can't get a job. I don't know what I would do with my time.
I say you're right. Because whether you say can or you can't, you're right. And really, again, it goes back to, as you mentioned, priority. It's mindset. You don't have to suddenly say, we're selling, we're getting a van. No, have a plan. If this is something that you want to do, I know that ultimately I want to be loose on the road all the time. And I don't mind having a base camp. I enjoy it. I have a regular house, in another part of the state that I'm almost never at. So I'm almost never there. I'm usually here. Um, can, but it takes planning. So whether you're a saver or you just, I work, and you probably do too. I have a number of high net worth individuals. And the one thing that they all have in common is this. And that is that they never talk about what they can't do. All they ever focus on is, what do I need to do to be able to do the thing or to get the thing? That's what they focus on. Whereas people often on the other end of the spectrum dwell on what I don't have. Well, the more I dwell on what I don't have, the more what I don't have, it expands. So I tell my daughters all the time, if you want whatever it is, and for whatever reason you can't get it right now, ask yourself, what do I need to do to achieve whatever this thing is? And then take action. Even if it's a small incremental step. You know, we were talking, you and I, about how the Eddie's project actually got relaunched. Well, I had been saying I wanted to do it, and all I was going to do on the road all the time. So I know where all of the free roadside assistances are. I know almost every rest area in the United States. I can tell you that the last mail pickup in the state of Florida is at midnight at the main mail facility in Miami. If you're not in Miami, you can go at 10 o'clock in Tampa and you can go at 9 o'clock in Orlando. So I made that my business to know those things because, yes, I have had to go to Miami to send out an overnight that needed to get there the next day. So when you think about it and you think about what you're trying to accomplish, just focus on what would I need to do to do this next thing. And if you take the next step, then you're better. At the end of the year, I was in another group I'm not a social media person. So all of this is new and uncomfortable and territory for me. So it's fine. And there was a person who was in one of the groups who was having some sort of peril. And he posts in the group, my heater has gone out. It was one of those rare times in Florida. It was actually cold down here below the Kissimmee River Basin. So he was down in the Keys or something. So I waited to see if any of these members, and I think in that particular group there was, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000 members. If anyone was going to say anything, was anybody going to offer a suggestion, actionable intel, something? Someone said, oh, I guess you could go to Walmart and get a car heater or get a car blanket. Someone else said, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. You got a lot of, I'm really sorry to hear that. Well, when I compared that to another group that's mostly women, and someone was somewhere in Arizona, something. She was having some sort of car trouble. Literally, within 10 minutes, there was 50 people. What exit are you at? Do you need help? Do you need a driveway to park in? And it was just so, the contrast was so stark. One group of so-called van lifers and this other group of van lifers who were primarily, and what the differences were. And I thought, well, I know a lot of these resources. And in that particular case, he was not very far from where I am. And I thought I could offer, he could come to the camp if he needed somewhere to open up his van and, break it down. Because a lot of times they don't want you doing that on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. But I have a camp here. You could come here and do what you need to do. We don't need to talk. We're not friends. This is a safe place for you to do what you need to do to fix your rig. I didn't say anything because so many people were disparaging in that group about people offering assistance to other people. And I thought I could just start building out some of these resources that we have. Started with the roadside assistance. Then it went to some other travel things and maps and whatever. I ultimately was asked to leave that group because when one of the administrators asked me about giving them access to this data that I had, and would I just give it to the group? It's like, I'll publish it. You can freely use it. Well, what he wanted was me to give him our URLs. He wanted us to give him our website. He wanted all of this stuff. So if I wanted to be helpful, I would just give him all of this intellectual matter. And I told him no. I said, I'm happy to help you build your own. I will not charge you a fee for that. I'm happy to help you to facilitate that, whatever you want to do. And it really kind of made me sad because there's still people out there that think that someone always wants something from them. that you're somehow trying to capitalize on them. It's like, I'm trying to help you out. We are all out here alone for our very reasons. Most of us travel alone, or you travel with a partner, maybe you travel with kids, but you're out here alone. This is not a group where I can call my mom and my mom's right down the road. Or this is not what happens when you take up being a nomad. And it made me sad, but I was unsurprised that, and he didn't even say, "Oh, we're putting you out of the group." They just blocked me, which was fine. I went on and I opened my own little group, which is not doing well, but probably because I don't say anything. But I went on to continue to try to promote positive messages for people who are thinking about making the choice, because it's going to start here in your mind, much more so than in the camping gear that we have or the rigs that we have, because wherever we go, we take ourselves with us. So if we don't change how we think, we can never change our environment or those things that influence our environment.
So, okay, so your website is eddiesonthemove.com.
Yes.
And, you know, the one thing, though, that I really respect is that you understand your value, because so many times women give up things for free that men get paid for. And you gave me this quote here that I want to read. You have, above all, remember Barbara Stanny's words from The Secrets of Six-Figure Women. Asking for more is an act of self-love. Saying no is a show of self-respect. Refusing to settle is a statement of self-worth. And walking away is a sign of self-trust. And I really resonated with that, because I do think that part of being a gutsy woman, or just even if you want to earn six figures, is that you have to place value on yourself. And you did that by saying no, and you have to be willing to say no and walk away.
Yes.
So we're getting close to the running out of time. I want to ask you two things. What is in store for you for the next 10 years? I mean, you've got lots of dreams ahead. Where do you tell me about that? What do you see for yourself?
I see continuing to work on Eddie's, and I see continuing to move my practice to remote um, only, remote only, over the next several years. I will continue to travel around the country, and I will be endeavoring to set up little Marlowe's farms across the country, probably six. Right now, six is my desire, so that I can establish these little encampments for women, gutsy women, or modern nomads who really do just need a place to stop, to rest, to refresh and replenish themselves as they continue on their journey. And I think that's my small piece I would be able to contribute ultimately to women who are contemplating this lifestyle, and they're contemplating making a change for the better. That's what I'll be doing for the next 10 years for sure. And then trying to figure out how to freight my travel trailer around the world. So that's it. And going to my last two continents for sure.
That is fantastic, and we'll provide links, any information that you would like us to know about, so people can connect with that. And just the last thing, do you have any final words? For a Gutsy Women Club, people who want to be gutsy. Any last thoughts?
Take action, build contingencies, and move forward.
That is fantastic. So another fantastic episode of Gutsy Woman, Shawn Powell. Thank you so much for being with us today, and I wish you all the best of success. And I'm hoping maybe we can connect. I'm headed down to Florida next month, and would love to be able to connect with you. I'll be kind of all over the place, but we can. I'll share a schedule with you. Okay. Thank you so
Outstanding. I
much.
look forward to that.
All right.
Thanks for having. Have a great day.
You too.